Good stuff. All right. So welcome everybody. This is an event where I wanted to look at astrologically what is going on in 2020. And hello Artemis. Welcome.
Yeah,
You are fashionably late as always. We
sorry.
we just did introductions. You want to introduce yourself real fast?
Yeah, my name is Artemis. What are we supposed to say? Anything?
You can say how you know me or what your interest is.
Oh yeah, Nathaniel and I met at this meetup group when it was the Western Tradition Esoteric Spiritual Group a few years ago. What year was that? 2015, 2014? I don't know. Anyway, a few years ago.
All right. Well, I'm just getting started and everything. So this is going to be a kind of a look at 2020. If a lot of y'all came to this 2020 lecture, and I talked about some of the themes that I'm going to be looking at again a new way today, but the hot spot, I mean, I'd like to make this a little interactive. Who knows what sign has been the hot spot with all this, like the 2020 hot spot?
Capricorn.
Capricorn, Artemis for the win. So Capricorn is still a huge deal. And you can't consider Capricorn or any sign without considering its opposite. So we're going to see a lot of fun ways that it's tied in with Cancer. Those two themes are really big. We're also kind of on the verge of going into what we would call the age of Aquarius. And there's a few different symbols for that. But Aquarius is then also tied in opposite with Leo. So that axis is getting activated. So I'm going to go ahead and do my screen share so that y'all can see the that I'm talking about. And we'll move through the year. So I'm going to be talking first mainly about the big themes that have been, we could say, erupting all over the place. But then I'm going to walk us through how the energies transform over the year too. So this is the big date that I had been talking about in my 2020 lectures, which is January 12th, 2020. And this is when Saturn and Pluto met at 23 degrees Capricorn. And it just happens to be the day too that the sun is in that spot and Mercury is about in that spot. And plus we've got Jupiter in that sign and the South Node. So we got a full house in this Capricorn area. So first thing you got to do, note too, when I'm talking about signs, I don't mean like this only applies to you if your sun is a Capricorn or, your sun sign, or I'm talking just about people that would say they're that sign. I'm talking about that brand of energy. And with all of them, I'm talking about a brand of energy. So, and we are all 12 of them. So that's at least 1/12 of us, although we're going to express it different according to what our natal chart has in it. But there's a lot of Capricorn, and some things that associate with Capricorn are the government, authority. It's the outer, it's the outside, it's the outer level of things. And so it's the world stage. It's that government, it's long standing structures, all of that. And Cancer, what it's opposite, is very much the home. It's the womb. It's the axis of like the womb and the tomb. And we see the Capricorn having that father energy a lot, and the Cancer axis having a lot of that mother energy. But so when I talked about the implications of Saturn and Pluto meeting here, I said this year we've got some themes that are anything that's out of alignment with truth and integrity, with like capital T and capital I, breaking down and not working anymore. And there's a lot of septic systems in government that fit into that category. And as some of y'all know from some of the weird news and ET stuff and all, there may be some occult or hidden sides of what even is there to break down in the government. But that whole concept of authority is represented in Capricorn. It's our leaders. It's the people at the top of the mountains. It's also the extent of the physical world. It's the last earth sign. It's the 10th. It's the completion of man. And so it's also a stage that's an initiation. Both, like all the cardinal signs are initiations, really. But the initiation of Capricorn is into spiritual life esoterically, and it happens through, you know, a tomb, in the sense that the world of matter goes as far as it can. The goat has climbed up the mountain before it then has to climb back down and deconstruct and decompress and dissolve things in that water with the fishtail. And so it is an initiation. It's like it's the cross initiation in some kind of esoteric ways. And then opposite with Cancer, you have the initiation of entry into the physical world, of incarnation, of soul experience. It's this womb that holds you like a nest, like an egg, all of those types of implications. So they're two ends of the same axis, and this is the axis of security. And so it represents this kind of, Capricorn is this security on the outside. It's objective security. It's worldly status. It's my position in my career. It's how far I've mastered the world of matter. And it's my objective worldly security, the money and the acclaim and what I've built, my monument, my testament. Cancer is a type of security that is very much having a comfortable nest, that I'm cushioned, that I'm insulated for my incubation, that I'm cozy and comfy on the inside, emotionally well fed, all of that type of thing. So they're an axis of security. And that the Capricorn stuff, I've said lots of stuff about, just something big. And I said that this is something that is on the world stage that everybody can see, and that it's, we also have such a loaded political year. Capricorn governs politics. Capricorn governs government. It's also banking systems, in the sense that they're long and established, all the old structures and all, although we can file banking and economy under Taurus more. But all those Capricorn structures are kind of undergoing a compression, a breakthrough, a transformation, a reformation, all of that type of thing. And just had another thought that was zooming in there. This year. Let's see. We'll see where else. Does anybody have a question yet?
I just wanted to say, Nathaniel, that
Go ahead.
my new job is for a bank, which this is the first time ever that they are allowing people to work from home. So transformation, definitely.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about banking and economy and all of that stuff that's related to this. What I was going to say, I think, so some of the things, whatever with politics that's going on this year is a huge deal too. We've talked about also in the 2020 how Trump specifically plugs in with all of this. But I said that it's a situation that, like, it could make the election irrelevant, like an event that the world has to come together for, or something to that nature, that the old structures crumble in a way that it's more important that we all come together than who sits on the Iron Throne. We could see shuffle in that regard, and that's one thing I'm going to talk about today. So just that backstory is that there is a lot of pressure in Capricorn from this meeting between Saturn and Pluto. That kind of meeting does not happen a whole lot. Maybe maybe every 30-ish years. But then what makes that point especially interesting too is that it's not shown on here, but just like we have a south node and a north node here that we read in a chart that's based on the moon, every planet has a south node and a north node. And the south node of Saturn and the south node of Pluto are right at that point. So it's bringing back up and purging a lot of stuff related to the past in a very extended karmic way that it's a long time ago. It's ancient type of stuff, and it's triggering traumas and memories and fears in everybody related to whatever cataclysmic events we've gone through. Whether you were in a war, you were burned at the stake, you were in Atlantis, you were in the plague, you were in the Great Depression, you were in the concentration camp. Whatever your trauma is is magnetically pressurized in this kind of like little testing thing that's going on here. So it is doing quite a number. But it's all for a purpose, and there's so many things in this that I hope that y'all have found that is the bright shiny spots. And one thing that I remember talking about is we had Jupiter when this event happens, and like I said, there wasn't anything on the 12th that you needed to look for. When I'm looking at timetables and stuff like that, I look at like orbs and like long-term periods. Like we could say, like, I mean, I don't know. We're going to look at the virus because that is like one of the big symptoms that we're seeing. But we could say it was around at that point. Is that the start or the end or whatever? Like this is an event that includes the virus, but it's bigger than that. And we have this reservoir of Jupiter in the same sign. Jupiter's our good luck guy. Jupiter's our opportunity, our growth, our expansion, our yes factor. So he's in the same sign. So while everything is breaking down, when Saturn says no, stop, like heavy, hard, all of that, and Pluto says intense, pressure, eruption, all that kind of stuff, that's a hot spot in that sector. Jupiter's coming through and it's going to magnify, but it's also going to help diffuse and grow, and there'll be a lot of opportunity from it. So that's a lot of the Capricorn dance. Another hot spot this year, and just in general, that's part of the story, is Uranus in Taurus. And that just happened like last year or so that it got in there. We've got about a 7-year window that it's in there to totally do its Uranus thing through that energy of Taurus, but it's plugging in and doing stuff with it anyway. And you can't ignore like economy, like both of these, Capricorn and Taurus, are earth signs. It's things that are solid, it's stable. I mean, like the endurance of time, Capricorn, and then dependable, stubborn like a rock, Taurus. So like these earthy, industrial, solid, long-standing energies have both got their own thing. I mean, this planet here going through the earth, going through matter, going through economy, value, substance, all of that is electric. It's disruptive, but it's liberating, it's elevating, it's all those things, but it's definitely shocking and surprising and all of those types of qualities. So we talked about like what this 2020 crunch here that's happened this year, big deal. It is interesting to me that we have landed in the global game of life that is now like Jumanji. Somebody landed on virus, and we have this total outbreak. And virus fits the bill for an event that is Saturn and Pluto in a lot of ways. Like you got the idea of financial depressions and leaders dying and intense things, like all of that. Pluto is the ambassador of Scorpio. Saturn is the ambassador of Capricorn and Aquarius. But through that Pluto-Scorpio type of energy, you have all the things that associate with it. So Pluto and Scorpio is the invisible. It's things that are intense. It's psychological. It's death. It's sex. It's evolution. It's business. It's exchange. And so this natural disaster, it's almost like if there was a signature that said like, hey, the shit has to hit the fan one which way or another. And like if there's not a war going on, and like this is really a natural disaster, whether or not it occurred naturally through animals or if it was made by somebody. Both of those possibilities are talked about out there. It doesn't matter which one is the genesis, but this thing that swept the collective attention of virus is very much playing with our mortality. Everybody is digging into the concept of death and where you are with it. And I That's one reason this energy is intense, is because Saturn is the planet that symbolizes death. It's no, it's contraction, it's hard, heavy, like it's the end of life, all of that. Pluto is the god of the underworld. It's literally death. It's transformation. It rules Scorpio, the sign of death. So both Scorpio and Capricorn, and we can also say Pisces and you can find death in different places. It's got different metaphors and ways to look at it. But Saturn and Pluto is hard, heavy, and intense, transformational death. So both of those things coming through, and the fear factor. In esotericism, Saturn is a planet that's referred to as the dweller on the threshold. It compresses all the insecurities, it tests everything, it does this kind of pressure of like discipline. And then Scorpio is also, or Pluto is also a type of pressure. So they're pressuring our collective fear, and they're intensifying in a way that's related to Capricorn. Capricorn wants to objectively move forward, slow, steady, climb the mountain, accomplish the goal. And so we're seeing breakdowns in that type of behavior, leadership, or ways that are moving forward, that are not really moving the whole collective forward, are starting to break down. They're not working. They're out of alignment with integrity. Saturn tests integrity. If the structure doesn't have integrity, it breaks. And then Pluto exacerbates something and intensifies it so that it purges it. It actually, it's too hot and it lets go, or it burns it up. But so we're seeing it, this resourcefulness. Everybody's got to be resourceful, but anything that's out of alignment with integrity moving forward is breaking down, while everything else is kind of still doing the Capricorn cautious move forward, climb a notch, but it's got the integrity. And so there's a big thing, like the word integrity is a Saturn Capricorn type of word, that we're seeing active through all of that. So I talked about the keywords with Pluto, that invisible, intense, all that. Saturn, the words that go with Saturn are things like stop, slow down. It's government, enduring, break, solid, crystallize, concrete, test, discipline, heavy, hard, and serious. So it's that idea that is concretizing. It's creating form, it's structuring form, but it's also breaking down forms. One thing we can see just through this whole virus thing is it's slowed everything down. There's been a joke kind of that Mother Earth sent us to our room. And I've also said, Pluto, Scorpio is business also. We got government, Capricorn, Saturn, and we got business, Pluto, Scorpio stuff merging. But that Mother Earth has gone out of business. She's going out of business. She's not doing this shady business the same way anymore. And so the business that business is breaking down, in the extent that there's been a need for the earth to get a break. It's almost like what it's just like, okay, everybody stop the industry, stop the advancement, stop trying to get up another notch to the top of the mountain for a minute, or stop, go inside and stop running it all, or I'll shut it down with this. So there's something that is, die or stay inside kind of fear that does a certain kind of reset that's in line with that type of no, or slow down. It slows down everybody's activity. It's slowed down in everybody's world. Stop and smell the roses. There are still roses, but it's also the psychology. There's the questionability of things, and the psychology of the government, and questioning authority is another theme is high now, because there's so much digging going on, and there's so much variety. And we're going to talk about what's going on like in our now period, and with that too. The other thing, so the relationship to food when this happened, I also showed that it's not up here now, I didn't add it, but Ceres, the asteroid, she was on that spot too. And the whole idea that we've had with the hoarding behavior and the food issues, the food supply scare panic thing, that was one thing I said could be something that brings us all together. There was an issue related to food that was bigger than the Iron Throne. That's been in the mix, but it's bringing us back to this idea of what has real value, like toilet paper, apparently, but what has real value. So this liberating of the material world of Taurus that's going on at the same time as all of this, is showing up in, you can't eat a dollar bill, you can't eat electric currency in the bank you can't get to, and then what really does matter, what materializes, what has value in your world. That sense of value is getting to the point that it's disrupting economy to bring forth a new economy. And I said that I think we'll see lots of different approaches to economy over the next several to 7 years, while we figure out something that is equal and equitable is a better word, for everyone. It's a type of a new currency, electric currency, something of that nature. But I mean, right now, the whole economy is part of that old system that I feel like we're going to see totally reboot and reformat from all of that. Feel like I should take a breather. Does anybody got a question or a comment or something they want to throw out? Or y'all?
I do.
What's up, Jackie?
I don't know if you remember anything about my chart, but my first house is Capricorn.
Yeah, so I'm not going to deal with anybody's personal charts today. If y'all have got, I'll talk about that at the end, but like I'm going to look at just the collective weather for everybody. But if you've got a lot going on, we are all 12 signs. If you've got a lot or certain things in Capricorn, or even anything that's at that, I've really said if you have it at 23 degrees, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, anywhere that's been in tune with that, that's part of it. But I want to make sure too we extend that this whole event, when I say the event, it's like this, it's an astrological unfolding, and this virus is just such a symbolic like representation. All right. So I'm gonna start hitting some of the notes on my way to get into the tour of the year. So with the Cancer and Capricorn axis getting activated the way it is, so that the Capricorn axis is getting crunched, but when Pluto goes through something, there's a heavy polarity in that opposite sign. And so how interesting that we have this global catastrophic, death event, this thing hitting the world stage, and we all have to go to our womb. We all got to go to our womb. Everybody, for the most part, in large, is sitting in their womb now at home, which is Cancer. So there's a lot of incubation and time at home. Everybody is also getting more in their feels of what's important. What being nurtured, what's nurturing, what kind of comfort can we find, and that home base, home environment, family kind of energy, all of that. So we're all there. And it's like an incubation in an egg is one way that we can think of it right now. While this energy of Capricorn is dying, there is something new that is emerging through this incubation period that we're having in a small way right now from being quarantined, as kind of like a symbolic ha ha ha. But in a larger scale, there'll be an incubation continuing as that finishes churning out, over this year. And then Pluto won't go into Aquarius until 2024. And we'll talk about what that changes too. But so this incubation's happening. And that incubation eventually hatches into Leo. as this old world and Capricorn, purge, death, whatever, eventually leads into Aquarius. And that's, you know, Pluto getting into Aquarius and Saturn and Jupiter meeting in Aquarius this December are two big symbols of that happening. And we'll look at the shadow and the light to that. But there's a death happening here and a birth happening here. And so there is what's dying in Capricorn is authority, materialism, and a certain amount of greed. The whole trying to get ahead or climb up over top of somebody else's body. That whole approach of getting ahead that's out of alignment with integrity, that people that have authority in a world because they're a CEO or they have a high position, but they're not working from spiritual authority. They don't have true authority. That stuff is dying. So all the idea of hoarding, greed, power, hoarding power, it's dying because the leadership has to serve. The proper place for Capricorn is to administer law. The light things that are happening during this purge, so while that's dying, it is strengthening integrity. Whatever dies, whatever breaks, it is strengthening the integrity, and it's giving us discipline. So when it comes to managing the nuts and bolts of what's happening in the physical material world, it's fortifying our discipline, our ability to be cautious, to be resourceful, to have all of the values of Saturn and Pluto. When the shitstorm is flavored like Saturn and Pluto, you want to stay in alignment with those values in their highest regard, which is about discipline, which is about caution, which is about finding the bottom line, which is about proper use of power, proper use of authority. So all of those things are getting strengthened. Down here in the womb, where things are incubating, we're birthing the new world. So this on a large scale is, I mean, this is a global thing. And it's just kind of refreshing that, yes, we can all say that we have all seen something happen that is like blown up on the global scale. It's on the world stage, which is Capricorn. But then it's emerging a new sense of the world from the inside. The emergence happens from the inside. But as this old outside is crumbling, or the outside's authority and the outside structure is not secure, we go to the inside. What does it really take to feel secure? And so there's this new world incubating through that, and it's emerging, and it's got a feeling sense of value. You know, all the power and the money doesn't mean anything in the world if it doesn't touch on the inside. So it's incubating. Some of the shadow sides to Cancer, though, can be that we'll see some people, you know, whenever this is over, you know, and that's gonna be a contentious thing anyway. Some people are gonna say it is over, it's not over, whatever. Some people are gonna stay in their shell. You know, they can be that kind of, I don't want to come back out. I want to stay safe in my shell type of thing. Cancer is infantile. It has that capacity to stay in whatever the safe that stage is. It can also be subjective or moody with the me. It's only how it affects me. It's about me. And it forgets that it's, you know, it does have a place in the world. And it can also start to be exclusive in the sense of it's my home and my family only, and it doesn't see the bigger community. And that's going to be balanced out as the Capricorn energy crunches and kind of moves into the Aquarian energy. It's about the collective. There is a lot more collective global unity, liberation, fortification on the way. So it has to plug into the collective. What it will matter is how we emerge from this incubation, which is thematically Cancer, into Leo, which is knowing more about ourself, having a brighter, more radiant shine about who we are and how we, you know, contribute. And it should give us a sense of self-sovereignty. So self-sovereignty. So So I think we'll see people along a spectrum as always, and we'll definitely, and I can't wait to talk about the back and forth of stuff too with that, but as the old world dies and a new world comes forward, there's going to be people that are reluctant to do the new dance. And just as that can be symbolized as hanging on to the same old Capricornian structures and unwilling to look at the more collective dance of Aquarius, there may be some people that stay infancy and stay in their infancy, infantile, staying inside and not secure to hatch into who they are. Leo is all about shining as who you are in its full glory, and it's got that idea of self-sovereignty. So we are claiming our self-sovereignty as we collectively contribute to our collective unity. We all have to play our part, which means we all have to know our part. We all have to know ourselves. And that's a feature of being sent to our womb. When you go to your womb on the inside, you get more in touch with who you are and what you want to create. It's a very creative energy here in this little quadrant, but this is where it incubates. And just for example, being on Zoom, this is the first Zoom meeting we've done. My school necessitated it. I can only imagine how many people in the world have had to say, okay, I'm going to do this for the first time because of these things. So everybody is getting to see themselves in a new light, trying new things, the whole innovative energy of Uranus, new resources, new technology, all of that part of the mix as well. But that whole Cancer energy of figuring out and incubating who we are, as that's what will be ready to shine and be sovereign when we're more fully in that Aquarian energy, because it's not something that's overnight. Just checking my notes to see what stuff I have not talked about fully. As far as the election, I have no idea what we're going to see. We're all just going to have to watch with our own popcorn. But it's this whole I could see I mean, how could they have rallies at this point? It's very on off. Like, how do you have rallies? And does that matter? I could see, Trump saying in a state of emergency, we just declare, I'm the president for another year. Or the idea that nobody, that, we've talked about some point that like states are kind of responding more. We could see the corporate America, that the entity of corporate America become the small business of statehoods, in a sense of like making it more community, making it more collective. But there's a certain energy around this too, especially if y'all follow David Wilcock and Corey Good and that story of things also, that Capricorn and its relationship to father and authority, we can think about the government as being, the authority and the president, whatever. And I started calling it daddy with a capital D. There's certain factions and perspectives seeing bad daddy that's trying to hurt us and maybe take us over. And there's also a faction that thinks that we've got good daddy that's going to save us. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how both of those are ultimately kind of illusions in a full sense. Like most things are a paradox and they reconcile the two ends, and there's, the truth meets in the middle. But just to kind of sit with and think about that we, this Capricorn energy is the government, it is daddy. And, whether there is, an evil side to the government that's the deep state that's been on the New World Order that wants to scare us all into our homes and take away our power and do all that, or there's this side to the government that's fighting for justice and liberation and going to free us from this covert tyranny. there's almost like a flux where like they're both true, and neither one is all the way true. That's how I've looked at it. But it's also what's showing up, and so much of Pluto, Scorpio things are invisible, covert, hidden, underground, deep beneath the surface. But Saturn means that things concretize, crystallize, manifest, take shape, form, materialize on the world stage. So I do think in whatever form Daddy falls apart, it's something that is going to have levels that are below what we're able to see. There's a deep kind of hidden dimension to it. We may not know exactly. The government probably has some not so friendly factions that are monopolizing or manipulating or trying to keep do their dance. And there are probably some secret programs that are fighting for what's right. There's also going to be the idea that something manifests from it, so that we will see something about those themes. And virus again fits the bill for manifesting something that's an invisible natural disaster threat that you get from exchange with one another. Scorpio, like I've joked that everybody's thought about just thinking about life like life is an STD now. We've got our gloves, we've got our face masks, we're afraid to touch anybody, and I'm not saying that's that there's you got to have caution. Saturn also says don't take caution, you die. So there's caution and practicality, but the sexual part of the virus is that it's the exchange, and it's how you do exchange, and how you do business. Exchange is related to business, is related to sex, ties into ethics and integrity, and how you do business, how corporations do business. So all of those things, but the election, I think, will be it's going to be just another interesting part in this year that is crunched into everything we've got to look at. So esoterically, we have talked a lot about some of the symbols on the world stage. Looking esoterically, Pluto and Scorpio represent a stage that is the battle for the soul, for evolution. It's a stage and a process after we have the soul and the personality in balance in Libra, then in Scorpio, we start to have these situations and desires and temptations and things that test our motivations, our righteousness, what we do with power, all of those types of themes. And it transforms. The way I think of Pluto is it makes something super intense, and it draws you in. It's got a seduction factor to it. It makes something intense so that you totally immerse and then transform it. It dies in the process and it becomes something new. But it's related to the soul. So this is happening for like the collective soul, the collective, by being it's happening on the world stage, which is Capricorn, this battle for the soul. It's being broken, and it's causing gradual change and initiation that happens in a concentrated form. So Saturn and Capricorn again is also about initiation, and both of those are forms of it, but it's initiation into again those concepts of integrity and things that Capricorn stands for at the highest level of leadership, of steadfast caution, but all in integrity. And so that's part of what it initiates, because it's initiating the material king, the business CEO, the president, whoever's at the top of the mountain. It's initiating them into spiritual life. After you have all the power, after you have all the money, after you have the material world at your beck and call, and you are its master, how do you move forward? How do you move up? And it's the realization that from the top of the mountain, you don't move up, you move back down, and you make things so that it's easy for everyone to move ahead. So anything that's trying to hold up ha ha ha, they're holding up, they're holding that top position at the top of the mountain, and not leading from that position. It's a breakdown. So that's kind of a spiritual component to it. So when I talk about this year, I'm looking at this year as a whole. I'm not saying that this the big topic of the virus is lasting all year, but whatever this crunch is definitely lasting all year. So even if we, clear the virus by, whatever the most optimistic thing is, and things get back to normal, there's going to be a lot of things in that normal that are adjusting still. Like the dust, like it's going to take a while for the dust to settle, any which way it shakes out. I've also said, and I'm not sure where this note is, but since it's coming up, let's talk about it. That there's a lot of contention right now with what people believe is true. And this is part because Saturn being a ruler of Capricorn, Pluto being a ruler of Scorpio, it's like a collusion of these energies, which when I talked about yads in a video, the yad that it points to is this Gemini, information, the media, two sides to everything, all that duplicity. It's got that power center creates a lot of information and the ability to switch it around and all this. We got a big dance going on with these guys. And what can get squeezed out is that Sagittarian central focus, big picture, truth, ethics, morals, all of that kind of thing. But there's a lot of two sides to every coin. So like when this started happening, you've got some people that are saying, oh, I gotta stay inside. I'm gonna stay inside. And then you got some people say, no, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna do whatever. Okay, so they're doing two opposite things. Then you've got people, once they say, okay, it's time to, virus is officially clear, go back to work, some people are it'll switch those camps. The ones that said I was gonna stay in, they'll go out, and people, oh no, they're telling us to go, I'm gonna come back in. So people are, it's almost like the schism in consciousness is at a 50-50 kind of point where like half of the people are running to one side of the table, and then with the next piece of information it shuffles. And it's very easy to have judgments when it comes to this kind of all of these facts and stuff. There's so many facts and numbers and statistics and truths and stuff like that going around right now. And a point that I wanted to make was that some people are going to do it one way and some are going to be fine, and some are going to do it a different way and they're going to be fine. Some are going to do it one way and they're not going to be fine, and some are going to do it another way and they're not going to be fine. And it's not ultimately going to be who is right or wrong in that respect. It's like a convergence of different positions and perspectives, all kind of colliding. I talked about this activating the trauma that we experience. It's kind of magnetically, memory, karmically, all of those watery types of things that's related to past traumas from hard situations in this life, abuses of power, situations in the past where we haven't trusted the government. Holocaust comes to mind largely. Things with Atlantis, Great Depressions, whatever the cataclysms. The biblical theme and archetype that comes through also is the Passover. For anyone that might know that story, the whole idea that there is this invisible thing and it's passing over and it's killing everybody's firstborn unless you've got blood that's been smeared outside your wall to tell it to go away. So this is not exactly the same thing, but there's some weird connotations to it that are worth noting. It's this invisible thing that it kills some people and other people can't tell if they've got it at all. And some people are old and do okay, and others are old and don't. And then there's young people that you can't tell, and then young people that die. So it's treating everybody different, which is part of this nebulous kind of side to it. But it's got this survival echo. that's kind of happening in everybody collective. That's why it's touching on everybody's fear, everybody's death rattle, everybody's, you know, survivalism. And there's a lot of different extremes for how people think that they should do this. Should I stay here? Should I get on a boat? Should I move? There's all of these different things. Split decisions between, in the population right now, there's a split schism between what is safe and what is unsafe, and what to trust and what to not trust. And you could debate with lots of different people that are on whatever opposite side and whatever. You know, is it safe to go out? Is it safe to stay in? Is it safe to trust what this source says? Is it not safe to trust? Some are okay, you know, some are going to be okay getting the virus, and some are not going to be okay getting the virus. So it's like walking through this kind of fog, or this Passover, or this collective event. There's a million different ways to do this walk. And we can't say that this, you know, this way or that way is in, you know, we can't tell anybody else how to walk. And there's going to be a lot of people telling how to walk, and a lot of people either following or not following. So, and I was going to say, you know, some people are going to be safe at home. They're not going to go out at all. And they're going to be just fine. And others are going to go out and they're going to touch all sorts of bad stuff, and they're not going to be okay. Some are going to stay home and they're going to get some weird occurrence, and bam, they got it anyway, and they did everything right. And then some people are going to go out and do whatever they want to, and they're going to be just fine. So it's that kind of, we can't judge. We can't be the judge and jury. We all are going to have to, we're leading ourselves from the inside. We're leading with caution, set with caution and discipline, resourcefulness, investigation. We're leading in that respect, and we're leading ourselves, and we're taking our own authority, in a sense, as we find external forms of security and authority that are breaking down. And we're seeing those forms tested. If an authority is tested and found to be out of alignment with integrity, you don't follow that authority. And so we're seeing that metaphor active in lots of places, whoever your authority is, or whatever your authority is. Okay, let's start looking at the year a little bit. So I've had up January. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to March. And while I'm juggling my screen, if anybody has anything they want or need to say, you are welcome to.
I have a question.
What's up?
Do you think, has there been anything in the astrology about, through the coronavirus and everything that's happening, that a lot of people might start finally go, like those of us that are wanting to be entrepreneurs, like going more after that and kind of taking that power back into our own hands? If there's anything about that, but then like if it's related to Chiron being in Aries. And I guess it's kind of a two-part question. I know we're not looking at any of our charts, but those that can interpret it, as far as all the wounds coming up, like, is it being a good thing to kind of look at where your Chiron is?
Yeah, so the collective sense of wound with Chiron and Aries is about our identity. So like, you know, who are we? And how are we leaders? I mean, that's another, the leadership signs are mostly Aries, Capricorn, and Leo. And so this is another area of leadership that's definitely going to get real loud and hot this year, as we're going to find out. But it's also, this is the sign of entrepreneurial. This is like I climbed to the top of the corporate ladder. You know, I mastered the world of authority. This is like, hey, look, Ma, I made it. I did it on my own. I'm an entrepreneur. And so our identity, we're coming into healing our identity. And that entrepreneurial energy is also signified by resources, new economy, developing new skills. Taurus is about how we develop our skills, which we then put into practice through service in Virgo, that we then master and get a name for ourselves in Capricorn. So we're learning, we're developing some new skills. And Uranus also rules technology. How many folks out there that don't know nothing about no technology, that had to quickly develop a way to do that to do some online meetings when we found out how many of those face-to-faces could have been an email. Well, they have to be a video meeting now, but we've developed that new resource. So that kind of like new ways of making money is going to be part of the shuffle, as is new ways of running the economy. All this, I mean, stock market stuff, like, I mean, depending on what your beliefs are and what you think is going on out there with money and the Federal Reserve and you know, whatever, if it doesn't have real value, it's going to break down. Uranus is not going to be happy until all the things with true value are radically reappraised. And so we're going to see people developing new skills as they have a new healed identity. We're healing the identity, which is also about how we step forward, how we take action. And so that is part of the picture. And I think you're going to see that Aries theme. Hold on to that. That's that idea of entrepreneurial. That's going to get it's going to get louder throughout the year. All right. So this is around the end of March right now.
Thank you.
And yes. And so what we see here, like, I mean, I guess it was like around the middle of March. It was so funny how this all happened. It's like a dream, you know. It's just getting ready for spring break, and we'll see you in a week. And then it's like spring break is 2 weeks, and then never mind, we're not doing school anymore. So, but around the end of March, that hot spot where Saturn and Pluto had met now includes Jupiter's magnification, and then Mars is in that party. So wherever Mars goes, things get hot. There is a lot of energy. It's boiling. It's on fire. So I mean, it's inflamed. You know, I mean, think about the qualities of fever. It's that whole thing is kind of at a fever pitch. There is Jupiter, unfortunately, just by virtue of being abundance, can be making it bigger. It's making this a big deal. It's already a huge deal on the world stage. Everything's breaking and reformatting. Jupiter's making it a big deal. It's probably given us a little bit of like, it's concepts like faith and grace, and it's those kind of experiences where there's a certain amount of like opening up. And that has been, you know, we've had a lot of time to I don't know, some of you, if you're essential workers, you have not had as much time. And I had a joke about essential because Pluto makes us boil down to the bottom of what is essential. We found out it's not the sports stars and the actors that are essential. We need people on the front lines doing all of these essential jobs. So boiling down to the essential of what matters, what resources and material things matter and have real value. We figure that out real fast. But the whole boiling pot with Jupiter there, it's getting bigger, but it's also giving us opportunity. It's giving us that kind of reservoir of faith. There's a pony around this, you know, manure pile somewhere kind of idea. We also were out of the Mercury retrograde. Mercury's going forward. But the information right now with Mercury in Pisces is just not its clearest place. And it's possible for there to be a lot of illusion and confusion, all of that type of jazz when you've got Mercury, which is the rational intellectual mind going through there. I mean, psychic stuff might be heightened and all of that, but it's murky at that time. It's gonna get into Aries soon. We are in Aries. And the main characters that I'm going to talk about this year are going to be the slow planets. The sun is going to wrap all the way back around to Capricorn again. The moon moves way too fast for it to matter. It is, I say that the moon is a trigger for events, but it's something to transcend. Esoterically, the moon represents, you know, this kind of habitual reactivity that we see, you know, very accentuated in the masses, and it's a good indicator of stuff, and we have a moon sign to develop for service for a reason, but it's a trigger for events, and it's not something that ultimately over the course of the year you need to watch for. We will look at Venus and Mars and everything slower than that, because those are the things that are gonna tell the story. One more thing before I get into the year further. a way to think about Pluto. So Pluto is the slowest planet on the block here, and so it shows the longest seasons of change. It's destruction, transformation, and evolution. It purges off whatever is unessential, so that what is essential can rise to the top, and we transform and do things a new way. And then it's doing that dance through whatever energy it is in. And in our lifetime, everybody here was born with Pluto somewhere, either, you know, all the way down to maybe Cancer. I don't know if we have anybody in here with Pluto and Cancer, but those would be people that were in the 1914 through 1939. And before that, it was in, I don't think anybody's here in 1914. That was here. But it is, if we can think about the fact that Pluto has only gotten halfway around since 1914, as Pluto on its own finishes scraping through Capricorn, it is almost like doing a sweep of what was exacerbated and intensified and happened in that generation when it was in Pluto. And I'm sure that there are still some people alive with Pluto in Aquarius, and they may continue on until Pluto's in, I mean, with Pluto in Cancer, and they may continue to live until Pluto's in Aquarius. But I imagine that the Pluto halfway point might do away with a lot of that generation. It's almost like it's in the sign that's opposite whatever sign and generation is kind of transitioning at that time. And so it did this, you know, the people that it swept through there, we had, you know, the depression, this kind of this nationalism, all of this intensification of what the home and the family is. And then with the Leo time, that's like the 37th or the 58th, that time where we're looking at the identity and we're burning through that. Then in Virgo, Pluto is burning through service, systems, organizations. Then 71 to 84, it's burning through how we do social interaction and partnership. It's burning then through Scorpio from 83 to 95, with the generation of destruction of a lot of taboos and going deeper into some of those hidden places, deconstructing our religious systems and belief systems, and then doing this sweep in our government section related to power and authority before, when it gets to, again, at the end of this year, or not this year, in 2024, when Pluto gets there, it's going to do a sweep on that collective type of energy too. All right. March, flipping it back to this time in March. Venus, when this is happening, Venus has been in Taurus, and so our sense of value has been very much what matters. Those material goods like toilet paper, like food, like, you know, whatever sensual kind of sense of security. Also money. Like, you know, probably not the time that you're splurging on a lot of stuff outside. You're doing the things that you value, accumulating, holding on to money, all of those kind of things with Venus at that point. And that's how she has started. Tomorrow, Venus is going into Gemini. And she is going to stay there until around August 7th or 8th. Why is she going to be there so long? She doesn't take that long. She's not a slow girl. She is retrograding from around May 20th to around June 26th. And so she's going to spend a little bit longer in Gemini there. So if we go forward, let's start to go forward in time from the end of March. Gotta move my window. Let's go to the end of April, which is, we'll be here before we know it. All right, so around the end of April, she is in Gemini really good. So what I could anticipate with that, and what other things have shifted, the Mars that was exacerbated and kind of inflaming that area of Capricorn is going to go into Aquarius, and so there could be a little bit more of that collective tone and the rebel nature that starts to come up. We also have got Saturn in Aquarius already, but throughout this year, he's going to retrograde back into Capricorn and then meet up with Jupiter there again. But so he's getting a taste. Saturn's getting a taste for Aquarius. This is kind of a good point to talk about the light and dark side of Aquarius, because we are kind of, as the Capricorn stuff's dying, we're transitioning collectively into Aquarius, which has that humanitarian ring of things like brotherhood and social security for all, that sense of equity and innovation. And that's like the Saturn side of Aquarius. And then with the Uranus side of Aquarius, we've got the idea of technology and radical freedom and individuality and science, and all of those things to look forward to. It sounds great. We're going into this paradigm of the air. There's a dark side to Aquarius that if we look through the lens of Uranus, it can be very disruptive with rebellion, with revolution. It's change in the sense of, you know, rebel, that we're fighting for something new and different, and it's outside the box, and it's, you know, it's got to be radically equitable. And the Saturn part of Aquarius, because Saturn also rules Aquarius. Aquarius has Saturn and Uranus, which are very antithetical, but they paradoxically fit in this land. But the negative side of Saturn can come through as things like tyranny and suppression, and it's got kind of that communism flair. So there's the idea that both sides of that coin are going to get louder. There could be sides to things that try to tighten up or look, you know, suppressing our freedom and telling us what to do on global scales or, you know, large community scales. There could also be a lot of revolution. There could also be a lot of freedom, scientific innovation, technology, all of that type of stuff. But it's firing that up, and everybody's energy with Mars is going to be going from how do I cautiously climb this mountain the best, to how do I innovate the best? How do I rally into the collective the best, is that tone. With Venus at that time, we've got a nice trine that's going to be happening with, I mean, relationships. It looks like we're going to have, you know, in the community and with our relatability over a lot of this time period, there's a good swing that kind of stays between them. But while we have valued the things that, you know, we can get our hands on that matter, that feel good for security, we could see during the time frame of this year when Venus goes into Gemini, we want to reach out. We want to learn something new. I mean, if we're stuck inside, we're going to take a new class. If we can go outside, this is definitely an energy that values that. So I don't know if, you know, who knows, since Venus is there, she's not going to retrograde until May 20th. This is April 20th. Here, let's go forward and check that. Just say 23rd, it should still be. So when a planet retrogrades, it slows down and then it starts to go backwards. So she's going to do that around May 20th. So who knows if we get out of our womb before or while she's there, but if so, there's that kind of idea of we're going to want to go out and be in the local environment. Gemini is about the local environment, learning new things, communicating, all of that. So we're going to value that. Going from Taurus, Venus, you know, she's very comfortable with, you know, things that look good, feel good, taste good, all of that. Now she's more outgoing. And so that's where the value is. So it might be communicating with people we haven't, learning new things, circulating. When she retrogrades during that period, though, all the retrogrades internalize, incubate and reflect and review. So it can be that the information that we get, we might start looking for new information. We might have to go back, even though it's not in Mercury retrograde, it's happening in Mercury sign. And so there's some similar qualities that whatever we valued or, got information wise, we may have to reevaluate. It could also be, a period of review after, if there is a release of social distancing. Venus rules social, and she wants to go out and drive around and go, in the local environment with Gemini. Could be a period where then we rewind and we look at what has that done? How has that worked? And like I said, everything is so individual at this time. You cannot take somebody else's advice for yours necessarily. And just the nature of facts, Gemini rules facts and opinions. And the nature between those two is muddied at best right now. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are looking for truth, and we are looking for this idea. I mean, this concept of revelation and apocalypse is like seeing everything clearly, like 2020 vision or something, man. It's crazy. But so Venus reviewing that kind of thing at that period. So we're either going to review information, review the contacts. Venus retrogrades are notorious times where people or characters from our past may show up, and in Gemini they may have a certain piece of information that's useful. But that's kind of the dance for that period. We also can see that Mars will slide into Pisces here, and that can ramp up. The Pisces places, besides being the spiritual, it is the spiritual inside, reflective connection to God and all of this. It's also the places where people have to be in solitude, such as hospitals. It's the homeless, it's the disenfranchised, it's all of that. Having Mars there and Neptune, it ups the devotion. So there could be a lot more community focus on the groups that have been marginalized. And it gives a strong drive to the healthcare industry, to the hospitals, to anybody that is working for those less fortunate than them. All of that type of energy is where Mars is. Mars is not especially, I mean, he's always Mars, but he's a little bit less one-pointed in Pisces, and because he's got to be more go with the flow, but he's still super devotional, like the warrior, like the, want to charge forward and do Piscean things. And eventually it will make a sextile. So there'll be some kind of favorable, maybe like, I mean, I could almost see that, and we'll fast forward a month, but a period when like the medical or the hospitals or the whatever catches up with, whatever that is in some way. There's like something of that nature that's a nice boom. Moving forward, we just do a month at a time. All right, so then Mars will have done that sextile in about a month. Venus is still hanging out in Gemini, so that retrograde period is still going on. Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn are pretty much, I mean, they're the big stars of this show. They're some slow planets. They're hanging out in that quadrant. So, I mean, that's why I could just sit here and talk at y'all probably about what Capricorn and Cancer represents, and then sliding into what Aquarius and Leo represents. And that's the biggest of the big deal. Like, those are the archetypes and everything that's changing on the biggest scale. But then the faster moving stuff is just throughout the year. I'm not gonna, I mean, the sun and everything's still going. We don't have anything new to talk about in May because she's still retrograde. That concept of information. Oh, here's a one nice note. Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini, which is demonstrative of how she harmonizes and balances opposites. Gemini rules all the opposites. That's one thing that could happen. Okay. So we've got all these different opinions, and the information and the media is so all over the place. The Venus period, somewhere along but before she's finished in Gemini, could help to find some balance between the information, a little bit more harmony about what is true, and what we can trust. So we could see some, the information clear up while Venus does her trek through Gemini, especially since that's where her long-term retrograde is. So, because there's a lot of it, the information thing is big right now, that it's just been nebulous. And you could look at cycles of information with Mercury too, but the Venus retrograde there feels good for that. Let's go up another month. All right, we still got our party happening right there. And we have got Mars passing over Chiron in his home turf of Aries. So Mars is quite at home and Mars-like in Aries. And then Venus is still doing her thing there. We're not quite there, but we're close enough that it might as well start talking about it. So Mars is, as you can see, he's at 14. He is squaring this pocket. And as we move forward, he is going to square that a little bit more. Let's see, August 7th and 8th. Let's see. I'm going to go forward, not quite as far. I'm going to start slowing down some of the dates here as we get into this period. All right. So here we go with Venus is finally out of a long, long, long time in Gemini. That's her in Gemini all the way from tomorrow here in April to August 8th before she gets out. So I mean, that's a sitting with the, if you've got stuff in Gemini, she's going to go over it. She's going to retrograde over it. It's about reappraising values, internalizing values, sitting with information, reflecting information. If you've got siblings, it's going to harmonize and have you dealing with whatever kind of sibling stuff you've got. But so when she gets here, we're going to have a phase where the value returns to the home front. We went out, we played, we got new information, we had all these contacts. The value center is then back at home in our nest with our family, all of that kind of stuff here. And while she's there, she eventually is going to oppose this pocket, which is kind of going to be looking at what feels good about, how have we adjusted with this and what feels good and what doesn't feel good at that point. Okay. Over here, the real star of the show, though, that's starting to hit up here at the beginning of August is that Mars is in Aries, square this pocket. All right. Mars in Aries is the warrior energy. It is the self. I want to go. I want to take action. I'm stubborn in the sense that you can't tell me no. I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. That kind of idea. It's squaring, which is creating a challenge, which is where those two energies are kind of butting heads, with three big planets. Mars squaring Jupiter just kind of amps up the energy. I'm super busy. I'm probably taking on too much. I'm over exaggerating. I'm overextending. There's a lot going on. It's kind of that energy. Mars square Saturn is frustrated. I'm blocked. I feel like I have to do everything twice. It's never passing the test. I do something and it breaks and I have to do it again. It's a sense of frustration and that sense. I'm doing a lot and I'm frustrated. Mars square Pluto is very volatile. When you see that in somebody's chart, it's very abusive. It's senses of power that can be senses of power that can be abusive, where, you know, these are both, Mars is the lower octave of Pluto, that they're connected, but they're in a situation where it's hot. The word violent comes about. It's a violent type of energy. So there's that in there. Okay, so like, spoiler alert, sorry, there's a violent charge to that. What does that mean? I have no idea. You know, we saw virus happen. What does this mean? Could we see reemergence of virus? Sure. Could we say, I mean, if you think about playing Jumanji, really, like we've seen, like, it's like, there's fires in Australia, everybody go to this board. There's a virus in China, go over here. There's an earthquake in LA, go over here. There's locusts in Africa. There's is that kind of thing. The purge, the earth that's happening with these archetypes are bigger than our human anthill government and everything else that's symptomatically affected. But it's anybody's guess, but it's something that's going to be noticeable. Like the same way that this is noticeable, it's not like I can say like, oh my gosh, it happened in the beginning of the year and it's like over. Like, this is it's a crescendo here. If the government, if there is stuff going on behind the scenes, and if there is any activation of military for any purposes, this is very military. Like, I know a lot of people question martial law happening up here while Mars was in Capricorn. We didn't see that. And if that happened, some people would have, you know, crapped all over themselves thinking the government's going to take over and it's like, it's the New World Order. And some people would have said, yay, the good guys are getting rid of the bad and cleaning house behind the scenes. It's so contentious. What's up, Becky?
Oh, sorry, nothing. No,
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. So that square has a lot of potential to show up in a lot of ways. It's going to be made extra, as you'll see in a second, and I'm going to talk about what I think we'll see individually as all those, as whatever Jumanji shows up on top of the board. You have to stay centered in yourself. I mean, it is kind of, I'm getting a kick just tonight with that metaphor of Jumanji because it hasn't popped for me before, but it is kind of like that. It's kind of like a Jumanji year, like to get the society reformatted. Like the way that the society has been doing its business is not right. You know, giving everybody $1,200 and then like trying to get the stock market back to business is normal. I mean, been all these CEOs that want to send you back to work in maybe an unsafe environment so they can keep making money and keep the economy going. Nothing is going to fix the economy back the way it was before. Every band-aid that's put on it is going to burst at the seams a new way. And the idea that getting $1,200, that ain't a bad thing. If there's stuff going on that power and money has been hoarded and used in a not so great way, then reparations are kind of at hand. And that idea of jubilee, like debt forgiveness and all of that, you could see things hemorrhaging money. And it's like if things don't get on point with a new economy that's good for everybody, like it's like Mother Earth is saying, you know, if I'm gonna send out this disease that kills old white men, who do you think the majority of this 1% that is hoarding in that respect is? If they won't use their leadership and power in a just way, if they extinguish in some form or fashion for one reason or another, if they extinguish, then all that resource gets reallocated. So I mean, there is definitely a reallocation of resource for the collection at hand and a dismantling of unjust authority. All right, so we are into September now, a month later, and cool beans, that square is still just grinding. So it's still square there. Venus is in Leo at that point. So we've changed from like maybe this home focus to like we want to have fun and that's actually getting us a little bit full of ourselves again. Leo is all about like, you can't tell me what to do. Also, all the fire signs kind of are, but it's self-sovereign. We value our freedom, our ability to be creative, to be who we are, to shine bright, and all of that. So we're valuing that at the same time. And I'm going to keep talking about the Mars in Aries theme, because you're going to say that it extends from September into let's go to October. Bam. Now we're a month ahead and we're still in this square because Mars is going to retrograde. Mars is going to retrograde, just like Venus retrograde in Gemini. Mars is going to retrograde in Aries, in the sun, and it's going to do so while it's in the square, and it's going to finish that square out. So Venus, she's her big thing was in Gemini this year. She's going to continue forward, so we'll get back into improvement, and she'll continue to dance. That layer of the story is not as relevant once he's taken on all the attention this way. So I'm going to move forward another month because it's not going to change anything. The story that I need to dive into more is that part of it, because I'm not the same way I couldn't predict necessarily virus. I don't know that I can predict what that is, but it's something that is uncomfortable, that is eruptive. I mean, the idea, Mars and Pluto are both Scorpio planets. They rule things like volcanoes and all of that. Pluto's more of the underground side. Mars in Aries, though, he's going to behave more like Aries, so it's more overt. So Mars and Aries energy is in your face. I'm just going to do it, man. I'm just going to, I do what I want to do. Pluto is, I'm going to control things from behind the scenes. Scorpio, I'm going to control from behind the scenes. It's psychological manipulations, motivations, and it's happening in Capricorn, which is authority. What I see happening here is very revolutionary, but it's on an individual scale too, that everybody is going to be faced with situations where the choice is between what the authority, the external boss, government, whatever, the authority tells you to do something, and they know best. But then there's going to be situations where you say, this is what I feel like doing, and this is what I'm doing. And there's a big clash between those two things. Whatever type of control the authority and all of that is indicating is not exactly even Steven with everybody's self-assertiveness, your self-image, your self stuff. Aries is all of that stuff from yourself. It's your identity, and it's vital. And I made the joke kind of that, CEOs making people go back into an unsafe environment. If you just say okie dokie and you go in there, then you're expendable. If you say no, we have to learn what's vital. It's not vital that you do that. It's actually the opposite of vital. It causes death. So the whole idea of Aries is vitality. It's like that vital charge of self that is not in anybody else's control. We've got different ideas of Father God with Aries and Capricorn. Capricorn is like the law, and it's that sense of authority, but then this is the sense of like self, like just raw energy and taking action, and it's totally unrelated to anybody else. It's the most self-stemming sign that there is. That all the fire is identity and self, but then Leo is that sense of like, we're all sovereign. We all rule our own kingdom as our own king. And it's that idea of knowing ourselves, the specialness and the uniqueness of our talents and the identity. Aries is just our ability to live, our ability to thrive, our ability to take action, all of those qualities. So we're going to be charged strongly to take action. We want to take action, and we want to do it our way. And we're stubbornly going to say, no, you can't you know, you can't not make me or whatever. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of pressure that's still cooking up here. That's the same thing that I started about with understanding Capricorn and Cancer is still going on all year long. This is a big deal. But it's the idea that there could be authority that is dying, that is still trying to stay in control. And so while it's dying, it's trying to control harder, and it wants to, you know, I have to be in that superior position. And it's getting challenged though by just that kind of vital sense of it's not vital. I mean, and literally this way of doing stuff at this time is becoming less vital. There it could, I mean, and the other thing, let's think about, this is the election time too. So this is another reason why, like, who cares, like virus, Jumanji, whatever, with this election. I think it will, we thought that the last Trump election was contentious. There are so many people that are contentious with him, and I don't know where you fall, and everybody's all over, but if you see him as a demon, you've got it all wrong. If you see him as an angel, you've got it all wrong. He's not he's the trickster. It's the trickster energy, and it's some of both. And we're really harmonizing these opposites. There's a lot of polarity going on, and there's a lot of I mean, like earthquakes. I think that we're going to see sides shuffle on both sides of the board on all sense of, you know, different topics of what the best thing to do is, where the right place to be is. All of these things are getting shuffled over this year, and we have to be making decisions from ourself, from our vital sense of self, at the same time, in conjunction with caution and giving due caution to practical concerns, authority things. You can't totally throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I would say that there's going to be a lot of discrepancy between what we're told to do and what we feel like doing, and sometimes. And like I said, some people are going to do what they're told, and it's going to work out fine. Some people are not going to do what they're told, and it's going to work out fine, and vice versa. So it's not that there's one dance to do in this whole thing. It's just it's a big collective dance. So that continues. So we're in November now, and Mars is still retrograde, still square. We'll go forward to December. And I'm going to put it on the solstice because that's a fun date this year. And what we have at that point is still more square. Mars is still square Pluto, and so I mean that's a big thing. But what's fun is that Saturn and Jupiter are together in Aquarius. And as I talked about in my 2020 lecture, Saturn and Jupiter meeting is what sets a societal tone. It's like the base level of the principle of expansion and contraction, growth and discipline, and societal tones. The slower planets are transpersonal, but these are more societal. The societal tone for the year, for the next 20 years, is Aquarius. But what's more significant, as the other slideshow I did before shows, Saturn and Jupiter will only meet in air signs for the next like 250 years. So we literally are moving this year, this is it, into an air paradigm. That's why it's super symbolic. Not only are they meeting in an air sign, they will only meet in air signs for 250 years, after about 250 years where they only met in earth signs. For our entire life, Saturn and Jupiter only met in earth signs, except for this one little time in the 80s where Jupiter and Saturn met in Libra. It does a mutation. I actually just did a session for a girl with that placement. But said they met for all earth signs. Back in the 80s, they met in Libra, went back and met in Taurus again, and now it's full on air, and they will only meet in air signs for 250 years before mutating 1 year into the water, then going back into the air, and then we'll have water like over 250 years from now. But so the societal tone moving from earth to air, we're leaving the industrial age, we're leaving the sense of being ground bound, of being bound, the idea of materiality, all of that, and the idea of reaching for the stars, circulation, freedom, all of those things are at hand, but it's not gonna start perfect. It is not gonna start perfect. All those dystopian futuristic novels and movies and all, we could see as government and stuff is trying to find a new way to work, there could be some approaches that look and sound like, I mean, like communism. Like, I mean, I love Bernie Sanders, and he always gets pigeonholed as communist and socialist or whatever. You know, he's got good values for helping the collective and that mindset. But the way, you know, sometimes Saturn's fixed, like, yes, we're going to do it for the group, we're going to do it for the whole, and we're going to do it like really tight. So it can be holding too tight. So there could be that possibility. But there can also be like technology and energy and you know, Star Trek come out of the blue. It really depends. For any of you that are, I'm not trying to get too weird, but like into the ET stuff, into the David Wilcock type of stuff, what's going on behind the scenes type of stuff, like, I mean, I really think this is like the shit or get off the pot year. I feel like either we see some sort of radical liberation that sparkles that we can see. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine from this year not having the lid burst off of certain things. I mean, we have seen a lot of the sex trafficking stuff come up, as far as if there are more arrests going on, all of the story, the behind the scenes stories that gets pegged as conspiracy theory, and we're confused about what part is what of it and everything. This year, I just can't imagine that if there is a genie in the bottle, that something doesn't pop the lid off it. But as this new whatever starts, whether we've got new technology, new economy, there's a lot to clean up and there's a lot to start up, and it's not even if utopia is like right around the corner, it's not necessarily going to reboot exactly like that. Could it? Sure, I'm all about that possibility. I mean, if we, you know, clean a lot of entities off of the place and get everybody in a good spot, like, yeah, let's get free energy and all of that rolling fast. And but we'll see. I mean, Uranus down here, it's got a long time to perfect this new Earth type of energy, this economy type of energy. And then I'm going to go forward into the new year just a hair of 2021. We haven't even gone through 2020, but we want to look at 2021 for a second. So the new tone gets set on the winter solstice this year. Jupiter and Saturn meet in Aquarius, which really rings the bell of the Aquarian age. I mean, all that. And then when we see 4 years later, we get Pluto in Aquarius. And then all the problems that we just dealt with in Capricorn, we're going to have to churn through in Aquarius. It's I mean, even once we get Utopia, we've got problems with, I mean, it's the science of evolution and the science of the soul. Aquarius is AI, Aquarius is ETs, and it's all the hangups that come with all that territory, all the hangups of a collective everything, the underbelly of science, the underbelly of how it plugs in with consciousness and soul, and the whole AI thing is going to be one of the next big can of worms. It's going to take another like 30 to 40 years to purify. All right, so then this is January. Mars gets out of the square finally, but in Taurus, it's still holding on. There's still that frustration with Saturn, and then Mars is on top of Uranus. Well, if you know anything about those energies, you've got electricity and fire, And so this is like sudden, spontaneous, out of nowhere, disruptive, elevating, shocking. And this is fiery, energetic, not stopping, in your face. Da, da, da. So you can imagine around January next year still having some little spark and pop that, I mean, is getting things on stuff. And I mean, again, I just refer you back to the Jumanji metaphor. With I don't even know what else. You know, this. There, I remember the irony of thinking back in college. Maybe Ruth, you remember playing Pandemic with John Johnson or Matt or something, and it's like trying to stop a pandemic from erupting around the world. And then we had this. But for whatever, there's stuff that's getting consciousness shaken awake, so that we snap back awake into ourself, restructure the authority. But then as we move into this collective focus again, opposite that Aquarian energy, Leo, it is really about stepping into our self-sovereignty and who we are. We have been lulled to sleep a lot and been told who we are by authorities, how we are going to do things, what it's going to be like. And as we start to question that, maybe through cataclysmic things where we have to decide that's not vital for me, and I can't care about what they're doing or my neighbor's doing. I'm going to do what's vital for me, what's coming from my resources and my information, and then how I'm led, because the only person I can be accountable and responsible for is myself. And so it's that self-responsibility where you're responsible for your actions, whatever choices you make, whatever direction you go in, even when it gets to the life or death type of things that Pluto and Saturn and Scorpio and all that like to make us think about. So however the board has to shuffle, we've got to get in touch with our sense of self. And I think that we have some house clearing things with leadership that has been not good, business models, and business is Scorpio, so it's tied to Taurus, the money and the business here. If we've been doing bad business, and bad business in Scorpio means I get more than you get, I win so you lose. Good business is two independent companies come together and they do mutual business where they mutually benefit. But it seems like our business structure in corporate America has gotten to the point that some people benefit at the expense of others. And so with the expense of others aspect, that's been in collusions with government, if there have been any things done to keep that bad business going, that have been hidden, that have been manipulative, that have been controlling, that have been hoarding, that have been lying, then this is, as that crumbles, all of the mind control and the magic and the trance and the curtain comes up, and there's a certain amount of revealing. So if there's been any kind of spell, if you will, metaphorically, put over our information so that it's censored or contentious or confusing, I think that we will see that broken this year. I mean, that's a loud part of 2020. Like, what kind of year would it be if like the number 2020 doesn't promise us like a clear view? So I think we have a clear view that's still to come. I don't think this is it yet. The whole virus thing is not seeing clearly, but it's like, holy shit, it gets everybody's attention. It got the whole world's attention, and now everybody's psychologically unpacking it. I'll also say, you know, virus is so fascinating to me in the occult land of Scorpio, where it files, where the immune system, which is Pisces, when we think, and Neptune, the immune system, but it's a boundary. I've heard a lot of people talk about the immune system in relation to the aura as energetic defenses, and some science I feel like has shown that if you are fearful and constantly on edge and tense and stressed, your immune system's lowered. So what exactly is the hidden connection between immune system and this threat from virus, which it's interesting is this new war, it's not another country. The enemy is invisible. Like, ooh, how thrilling. It's that concept that gets us in our head. And it ties into things of like two people could touch the same thing and one of them gets them and one of them doesn't. So what is it that's doing that type of thing? How much does vibration matter? How much does the, you know, do those components factor in with it? Because no matter what, you know, your hand sanitizer and your this and your that and all your brick and mortar precautions, which are great. Saturn and Capricorn love precautions, especially brick and mortar precautions that are concrete. But Pluto and Scorpio loves the invisible world, the emotional, karmic, all of that type of stuff. What's the vibrational connections? What's the occult, spiritual lesson, ramifications, initiation? So just remembering there's a spiritual component. I think everybody here is awake and aware to there's a spiritual component to life in some regard. That's what's important to kind of keep our eye on. And it's bringing up fear for everybody, no matter who you are, whatever it is. Fear, death, mortality, loss, all of those things are part of that deep night, the dark night of the soul, the dweller on the threshold, the shadow archetype that we're washing through. So this year really is one to start the change. I mean, it's not like, you know, woohoo, 2020, then everything is like peachy keen, but this is the start of like, hey, it's gonna be a whole new dance on the world stage. Business as normal cannot continue. And this type of leadership, this type of rulership, these structures aren't what's best for everyone. The economy is not best for everyone. We're gonna say, I mean, economy, healthcare, education, all the systems have been affected. Are we gonna have remote schools for, you know, from now on? Healthcare, how do we need to look at that differently? All of these systems are now loud for reevaluation. If we have an election, can you imagine what the conversations are gonna be like whenever they can meet again? If they're allowed to before November, like, you know, still like, it's almost, I mean, we're starting a new government in like a consciousness way anyway, that like, I mean, that the possibility that like we don't get another election. Like those of you that remember me sharing the books, Baron von Trump's Marvelous Underground Adventures, this weird book written like a long time ago about Baron von Trump being a time traveler and his mentor is Dawn and all those weird connections. There was another book, a second one in there, and it was called 1900, The Last President. And it's, I mean, that concept, like, whoa, like, could Donald Trump have been the last elected president? Like, nobody would be thinking that this year, but who knows? I mean, it's really up for grabs with that. But you know, you can't say what is going to happen exactly, and that's not how astrology is really supposed to be looked at anyway. But you can see the weather, you can see the big themes, and just understanding what all these signs and planets represent as processes is what's important. And then for your own personal stuff, some of y'all have different degrees of knowing how to look at your own chart. This is all I'm talking about here for free is the collective weather. And it will affect everybody individually different because all those planets and all those places are going to be making all those lines with your personal planets in your natal chart. So everyone's got a unique snowflake experience of how this is washing over, but it's a huge deal for the larger collective, and everybody is swimming through it in some form or fashion. So I'm gonna bring us back in a second, but I wanted to say I just wanted to get together with everybody and see some of my friends from all over and share what I have been looking at and seeing and thinking and putting together from this. And I've been rebooting, like, I don't know about y'all, but I've been rebooting myself with astrology a lot through this time. You know, everybody's kind of getting more in touch with what is it that you really want to do, what makes you want to charge forward with devotion, what makes you feel self-sovereign, all of that type of stuff that we're incubating from plenty of time at home. You got plenty of time in your womb, your egg, to marinate and hatch out and incubate and all of that kind of stuff. But so my new stuff is at leadintogold.com, LEADN, the letter N, the number 2, GOLD.com. And if you know, this is just free offerings, and I want to do things like this from time to time where I'm going to look at collective. I'm going to look at everything. But if you want to talk about yourself, I'm not looking at anybody's chart. Tell me about me. I think the shortest time span I'm offering right now is like 15 minutes for $25. So that if you wanted something small to look at an issue or ask something, that's one way. I also have a free thing that I haven't filled up yet, where on my website it says, I've got a section for online offerings, and there's a form you can fill out if you follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to do that now too. And then you can fill out that form, and if you get 3 wishes. It's a genie experiment where you can either ask me 3 questions, or you can mention 3 areas of your life, or you can just say, I don't know, roll 3 dice, and I'll do one of those 3 things, and then talk about it for about 10 minutes. And I want to put together an hour-long video where I address 6 people's individual stuff, either 3 questions, 3 areas, or whatever. So if you want something free, that's an experiment that I'm doing. I've only had like 2 people, I think, so far. Once I get 6 people, I'll do a video, and I may do that experiment or offer a couple times. But if, you know, I figured instead of asking for love donations, I don't know where everybody is. Like, I mean, everybody's writing this different. People have lost their jobs and don't know where they're paying for what, and they're depending on, you know, this money from the government. And I do think we may get more, I don't know, but I mean, I've kept my job. I'm teaching remote, so there's different people in different situations. If you're inclined to give any kind of donations or whatnot, just set up something with me so you can get some time talking about your chart, at least 15 minutes. So that's what I would say for, instead of donations. Just, you know, if you want to look at your stuff, you can book 15, 30, an hour, whatever you want with me sometime.
Will you repeat your website, please?
It's Lead Into Gold. So it's LEAD, the letter N, the number 2, GOLD.com. And y'all know how I like some wordplay, and so that's lead into gold, because that's what alchemy is, where you transmute lead into gold, which is symbolically about taking that which is heavy and hard and black and making it valuable, shiny, and gold and radiant. But then it also, LEAD is lead, so the idea of lead into gold. So I'm leading into gold, or so that kind of process. So just had some fun with that. So I'm going to, does anybody else have a question about the charts or something like that before I stop my screen share? I'm going to stop the screen share and bring us all back to the Brady Bunch, unless someone has a question that they wanted to ask about the year's astrology at all, or any dates this year, or anything I covered in the plethora of stuff. All right.
Sorry, so you said it's leadintogold.com?
Yep.
Oh, I found it. Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Have you moved?
Huh?
Have you moved to Florida?
I have. I'm in Sarasota, Florida right now. And it's so funny because, like, with everything happening, I kind of think North Carolina's home dude has done a lot better managing than Florida's home dude, but you can't do anything about your home dude. But I'm okay. I mean, everything, I feel like Sarasota is like a little oasis like Asheville here, and I'm super great. I mean, I don't want to say I'm doing too great, because I know, you know, everything's going crazy out there, but I've got, you know, I got all my needs taken care of. I feel secure. I feel like it's like being inside for a hurricane, but it's a lot longer, and the weather's nice though, which is ironic. And it's just a whole new thing. But I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and bring us back and unmute everybody.
So did your phone stay the same?
Yes, my phone number's the same.
All right. I was just updating you.
Awesome. All right, I'll just turn everybody's thingies back on. Some of y'all might turn them back off, but that's fine. But it's been good to see y'all. It's been a wild start to the year, and I feel like we are all okay for writing it out, but it's wild. I'm gonna stop the recording too, I think. I think we're done with the meta stuff. And I will then find out in the next couple of days how to get it up.
Yeah, that was interesting. Thank you.